Good evening. This is the India Development Debate. I'm Taneia Bhardwaj and we're coming to you live from our Mumbai studios. The stage is set now for a big bang farmer rescue package. Reports suggest that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has discussed the agrarian crisis with Finance Minister Arun Jaitley and BJP Chief Amit Shah. It is learned that the government is likely to announce a slew of measures to win back the farm community ahead, of course, of the general election. The move comes against the backdrop of the electoral drubbing that the party suffered, especially in the Hindi heartland. One measure that's being actively considered is a zero-interest loan scheme for marginal farmers. There's also a proposal to completely waive off premium for crop insurance. Back-of-the-envelope calculations show that the zero-interest loan package could cost as much as 15,000 crore rupees to the government exchequer. Interestingly, this is a marked shift for the Modi government that opposed farm loan waivers and freebies, which could put further strain on the fiscal position. The BJP's pro-farmer approach is also coming at a time when Congress President Rahul Gandhi has launched a tirade against the PM, going to the extent of saying that his party won't allow the Prime Minister to sleep peacefully until on-farm loans are waived off. Interestingly, even BJP-ruled states like Gujarat and Assam have announced loan waivers to woo back the farming community. So, will fiscal prudence take a backseat in the run-up to the Lok Sabha elections? Are loan waivers the best available tool really to address the farm crisis? Those are some of the questions that we're going to put forth to our panel this evening on the India Development Debate. And joining in for that, we've got Taneia Bhardwaj representing the BJP. From the Congress, we've got Gaurav Vallabh. Siraj Hussain, former Agriculture Secretary, joins in. Food and Agriculture and Policy expert Devendra Sharma is here with us as well. And our consulting editor, Maithili Pusnurmath, joins in as well. A good evening to all of you and thank you so much for taking the time out. Taneia Bhardwaj, let me begin by asking you, I think there's no denying that the road to 2019 has to pass through rural India, and that's really the big political reality. In the state election, it's for everybody to see. Your party lost something like 79 rural seats in Rajasthan, 38 in Madhya Pradesh and about 30 in Chhattisgarh. What are your party's and government's plans really to tackle the agriculture crisis that's gripped the country?
See, good evening to the panel and to you, Ms. Bhardwaj. Now the idea here is that yes, road to 2019 is through the 70% of the India. I'll tell you why, because 70% of the country is rural, and a lot of the part is agriculture. So we definitely need to have a very sensitive approach towards the subject. Now, be it agriculture, be it rural development, be it rural infrastructure, which will include lights, connectivity, in terms of digital connectivity, in terms of services, last mile customer services to the rural areas. So the biggest chunk of that comes into the agricultural sector. Now, the way we look at it is from the time we've taken over the government from the erstwhile UPA, we of course took a long-term vision to 2022 in terms of getting a holistic approach to the entire subject matter. Of course, due to dynamic political changes, suddenly probably we'll need to make some gear changes to fasten those holistic approaches, but we will not lose our focus from getting a permanent solution to a subject matter rather than getting a slow and rather than getting a mid-term solution, waste the taxpayers' money, and then increase the overall cost of service to the farmer. So what we are wanting to do is we are wanting to understand that it's been 4 years. We've run some very good schemes over the past. We've done some very intelligent work on the ground for raising farmer welfare, for taking care of farmer welfare, raising farmer income, like the organic seeds, like the organic non-synthetic urea made available to the farmer, electricity and water issues within the state governments. And of course, we also understand that we are present across a very large number of states in the country today. So we are in a position today to roll out a very holistic framework in terms of state, with the state help also.
Okay.
So of course, we lost three large states where a lot of farming happens.
Yes.
But we're not losing hope in terms of getting, and I'm sure Congress will be matured enough to help us and not make a political issue, but to look at from a country perspective.
How nice.
And I think
yes.
That's how we will be able to look at it. We want more support from everyone from all walks of life, and deliver a holistic approach to it, and not a short-term solution to it.
All right. Okay. Gaurav Vallabh, let's come to you. Farm loans might not be a panacea, but they've most definitely paid off for you in 3 states. But the ground realities show that there are many fault lines. There's data to support it. Take, for instance, in Karnataka. You just had the Cooperation Minister a few days ago admitting that only 800 farmers benefited from the waiver. You've got the CAG's audit of 2008, loan waivers also showing certain deficiencies. At the end of the day, are waivers more about optics and wooing the rural vote bank?
It's not like that, Tanya. I will give you some data to support. Right now, farmers are in distress. So all of us sitting on this panel agree on that. So to get the farmers out of that distress, we have to take from 2 perspectives. First thing is that we have to get them out from the vicious circle of the debt and interest. For that, farm loan waiver is very much required. And then second, once waiver is done, then we have to support them from the income perspective. From that perspective, we have to give proper MSP, we have to provide all technological support, we have to provide such insurance schemes which are not designed for crony capitalists, because the current Prime Minister Fasal Bima Yojana, more than 16,000 crore is the profit earned by the insurance companies. So we have to look from the 2 perspectives, that first is the necessary condition that farm loan waiver is required, and then farm loan condition waiver is not the complete solution. Then for complete solution, we have to support with the proper MSP. And the data says that when we did the farm loan waiver in 2008, after that the agriculture growth rate post 2008 to 2014 was 4.9%. And in last 4 years of Modi government, if the things nothing had turned out, because the agriculture growth rate as per government data is 1.9%. So why it is happening? The reason is very simple, because government had no perspective to see the rural economy, to see the farmers' distress. They are more interested to waive off 3.27 lakh crore of their 15 crony capitalist friends. I am asking you, Tanya, that state resource belongs to all of us. It's not only for the corporate world. When government can waive 3.27 lakh crore of 15 borrowers who happens to be good friends of the ruling party, why can't you do same thing for 62 crore farmers who are in distress? And the last data which I would like to share, the farmers are 52% of farmers' family are debt-ridden, and average debt is 51,000. So you are not seeing that data and making some claims like organic we had done. Organic, it's good idea, but please try to address the root cause. And root cause doesn't require band-aid. It requires a big surgery by giving them support in the form of loan waiver. Not after 4 years and 8 months. In the last 4 months, you are saying we will do this, we will do this. Where is the fiscal space? So you lost the opportunity, Mr. Vaibhav Agarwal. Now that opportunity is not going to come back to you.
Mr. Vaibhav Agarwal, we will give you a chance to respond, but it's only fair that we get opening comments from everybody. So, Vaibhav, please do sort of, be patient with us. Maithili, populism is the flavor of election season, and, any report you pick up, there are reports that suggest that the debt to GDP ratio of states will worsen by an average 4% if all states would actually waive off 50% of farm debt. You had a PSU banker just the other day, give us a soundbite about how loan waivers are just not good for the country's credit culture. Is politics always going to win over economics when it comes to this debate?
Well, yes, in the short term, particularly when elections approach, that always is the case, which was why in 2008, when the Congress government announced a huge farm waiver, a countrywide farm waiver, in fact, it cost the country 60,000 crores was the initial estimate, and final figures show it was close to 72,000 crores. It set the government, the central government's fiscal deficit target way beyond what it should have been. It worsened the state's fiscal deficit achievements, also their debt to GDP ratio, vitiated the credit culture in the agricultural sector, and did very little for farmers, because if you look at the interview that the former Food Secretary T. Nandakumar gave, and he said in 2008 when we devised the farm loan waiver, we thought it was a once and for all, and after that there would be no further need for any such kind of waivers. But as we are seeing, it's something that is being used again and again, because the problem is we are addressing it only symptomatically, whereas what we need to do is make farming a viable proposition. Today nobody gets sufficient incomes. The smaller farmers don't get sufficient income from farming, and because of that we have this huge pressure of distress and farm incomes falling way below what a farmer needs to subsist. So what you really need to do is give them income support, make farming a viable proposition, remove people out of agriculture, give them non-agricultural jobs, long-term structural change. Unfortunately, politicians invariably look for short-term rewards and miss the larger picture.
In fact, it was Mr. Devendra Sharma, I remember on ET Now, who had made a point about how in the last 4 years we haven't seen farm income go up at all. It's remained static. Mr. Sharma, let me come to you. It's raining farm loan waivers, but what are the ground realities telling us? Are farmers really gaining?
Well, first of all, it's very heartening to see political parties now treating agriculture on the top of agenda. That's a very heartening news, and this has happened after 70 years of India's independence, that everyone is now concerned about agriculture, and thanks to the electoral verdict in the 3 heartland states that this has been made possible. And I wish in 2019 the farmers again demonstrate their anger and topple everything that is not working in their favor. I think that's the way forward for this country to understand that agriculture is passing through a terrible, terrible crisis. Not only 4 years, if you look at it, 4 decades, the farm incomes have not gone up in this country. 4 decades. Can we even imagine how farmers have been surviving in 4 decades? I remember 4 decades earlier, 40 years earlier also, farmers were throwing tomato on the streets, potato on the streets. Even now they are throwing tomato on the streets, potato on the streets. Nothing has happened in the last 40 years to take care of farm distress. It was all visible. And no economic agenda or prescription that was tossed on by the corporates worked for agriculture. That means there's something terribly going wrong. The way we look at agriculture, the fault lies in that. All these years when we talk of a loan waiver for the farmers, we are all concerned it's not the right way forward, it will upset the national balance sheet. Doesn't the corporate loan waiver also, or the loan write-off that you call, upsets the national balance sheet? Nobody talks about it. When I raise these issues, the answer that I get is 2 wrongs don't make a right, which means 1 wrong is okay. Look at that. People defend 1 wrong and then they say 2 wrongs don't make it right. I also believe that, it's not fair to go in for loan waivers every other year. But then, unless we provide a income security to farmers, an income security which is based on the realities of the day. At least the farmer should get 18,000 rupees per month as his assured income every month. I'm talking about a farming family. Today, according to the economic survey, it tells us that only 20,000 rupees per year is the income of a farming family in 17 states of India, which is half the country. Now, how have farmers been alive all these years? I don't even understand that. And then we have never seen the nation outraged by this kind of a statistics that people, half the country or the agriculture in half the country is surviving in 20,000 rupees a year. Now, that tells us that, our interest is not to help agriculture. And I think now, with all focus coming back to agriculture, I'm only hoping that in the days to come, in the years to come, or in the months to come at least, we are able to formulate a kind of a strategy which will depend upon various factors, various steps the government has to take to ensure that agriculture becomes economically viable. It is important because there are no jobs in the city. We can't push people out of the villages into the cities because there are no jobs. We are faced with the jobless growth. We have to make agriculture productive and agriculture economically viable.
Siraj, said you've argued, many times in the past that the government has to evolve policies that are suitable to a particular state and then sort of fine-tune them according to local needs. How are you viewing it? What is the pragmatic approach here that needs to be taken?
See, if it was so easy, some government would have already done it. Now, the agriculture crisis has different facets in various states, and even within the states there are differences across regions. For example, in Uttar Pradesh, the state from which I come, the farmers of Bundelkhand face a completely different problem from the farmers of western UP who grow sugarcane and who get at least the state advised price, even though in many years it has come with a delay. So the policies have to differ from state to state, and I have written about it. This across the board waiver of farm loans is actually not justified for the poor farmers, because what is being done is that the rich farmer who is growing his crops on irrigated lands, who is getting the minimum support price or even more in case of sugarcane, who is earning a reasonable income, is being treated at par with the poorest of poor farmers. So we do need policies which will support the poorer farmers who are primarily growing crops in unirrigated areas, whose crops are not procured by the government and whose land holdings are very small. In Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, for example, the average land holding size is less than 0.5 hectare. In Punjab, on the other hand, the average operational holding is 3.77 hectares. So the policies have to be different, keeping in mind the specific circumstances of a state. If I take the example of Punjab, there the most important crisis which is developing is water, and something needs to be done for that, to address that crisis. Now, unfortunately, in this debate, in this heated discussion between Congress and the BJP, there is no time for TV channels to devote to real issues which require to be addressed in various regions of the country.
Charged. I think you make a fair point there. And Vaibhav, I'm going to sort of, come back to you and give you a chance to sort of respond to what, Gaurav Vallabh was saying. You had the Congress President Rahul Gandhi again in a very sort of fiery, press conference say that his party will not allow the Prime Minister to sleep until he sort of waives off all farm loans. He even went to the extent of saying that, if they don't do it, if we are voted into power in 2019, we will. Let me ask you, what is holding you back? Is there a worry here somewhere that maybe the Congress will take the credit given the hat-trick victory we've just seen?
Taneia ji, see, I'll tell you what, we are not interested to do politics over a matter of national importance. It is not in BJP to do politics over matters of national importance. I'm sorry, but I'll just quote some examples. When one of the agencies gets a success in getting a criminal back to the country for getting treatment done, we hail them. We don't make a political victory out of it. When one of our investigation agencies are nabbing people who are working against the country's interests, we nab them. We don't hail them politically. We hail our agencies, and so on and so forth. But we also need to be aware that traditionally, like Devendraji brought out, and I disagree with some of his points, which I will come to subsequently. But I think we also need to see and beware traditionally that Congress is always buying votes to give by giving freebies and get into corrupt malpractices within the governance. Whereas the Modi government wants to make a farmer a completely self-reliant person, an entity who's self-reliant, like a proprietorship business. You have to understand the farmer has to earn and then invest. I fail to understand that there have been so many studies in Niti Aayog conducted by the Ministry of Farmer Welfare, headed by Gajendra Singh Shekhawat, and so on and so forth. I don't understand what was, and I'm sorry, but I would like to point this out that Devendraji made a very holistic approach towards this solution, that solution. We should have this solution, very from a very intellectual perspective. But he has not quoted any facts. He has not come up with any ideas. He has not written any letters to Gajendra Singh Shekhawat, and I'm privy to it, and I can say that with a lot of authority. And he can come back and rebut me if he has written any letters and suggestions. So unfortunately, people like to talk in India and make mountains out of moles. People don't want to talk of solutions. People don't want to talk. Gaurav Vallabh just pointed out that agri growth has just been just about 1% that he quoted. I'm sorry, but I disagree with it because data don't match the government. Ask me, and I'm a non-partisan, apolitical person. I'll be very happy to say if my government is failing somewhere. But I will bring this out that as per Agri Watch, an authority of data collection under the CSO survey, it is 4+% in 16-17, and the data for 17-18 is yet to be published. So let's not be in a hurry to have misleading statements across the board. And the government does not have a magic wand. The farmers need not to be, in as you said, 60,000 crores it costed in 2009 when Congress went UPA 2. What was the solution they made for 5 years? Forget about BJP government's failures towards farmer welfare. The Congress can sing all they want, but they have no success songs. But when it comes to us, I have data to prove that the farmer deaths have reduced. I have data to prove that I have been able to make available the very concept of farming, which is the urea, available to the last mile farmer as far as Anantnag in Jammu and Kashmir under that conditions. And I am on record. The former agriculture secretary is sitting to correct me here. I'm a junior to Gauravji, Professor Saab. I'm a junior to everyone else on the panel. But I'll be happy to comment. I don't want to speak out of my depth. Right. But I have data in front of me. Everybody wants to talk like a professor and a Gyani Baba, but nobody wants to come up and participate in the solution.
Well,
what we want is participation from everyone.
Right, Gaurav Vallabh, I'm going to allow you to sort of respond to that. What is the Congress Party's plan to increase farm income? Yes, no, Weber, it's only fair we allow him to, defend his stand. Please, Gaurav, go ahead.
Gauravji is responding. I'll quickly give him 2 more points to respond on. Two major facilities.
Let me.
Gauravji, I'll give you 2 more points.
Sure.
2 more points and then you respond. Almost 2 crore soil health cards were made successfully by registered farmers. Do you have any success to talk of? No, you don't. If you have, please rebut. Almost 1,800 crore worth of business has been carried out through ENAM, which is the business on the agriculture market, national agriculture market on the e-platform, eliminating the middleman, and we have traded more than 36,000 tons of agriculture produce through the ENAM project.
Right.
So now your response to that.
Go ahead, Gaurav, please respond.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, Tanya, I am very happy that Weber, from his party's perspective, had categorically said that they will not go for farm loan waiver. Although we believe that farm loan waiver is very much required, and we will go for that whenever we will come to power, and in all state governments where we were voted in for government, we had done that in 2 days' time. First thing. Second thing, he gave me many ideas that ENAM platform. Do you know that out of the total transaction in the agriculture trade, the ENAM constitute 0.6%. Vaibhavji, in which world you are in? We are in India. We require mandis. Farmers are not able to go to mandis and sell their product. Coming to the third point, he had mentioned that we had done loan waiver. What happened? The data is there. I am just quoting the CRISIL report. As per the CRISIL report, post farm loan waiver, there is a MSP increase by UPA 2 of 19%, whereas the MSP got increased in last 4 years of Modi government as to around 3%. So one side is 19%, another side is 3%, and this is CRISIL report. Fourth point I am pointing out, just for your information, that whatever data I had quoted, 1.9% is the data I had quoted from the economic survey of Government of India, printed under the Ministry of Finance. That data, 1.9% is first 4 years agriculture growth, which was 4.9% average in UPA 1 and 2 combined together. So I don't mislead anyone. Weber, if you want, I can share the details with you. The ET Now research team can also confirm, or otherwise I am ready to discuss.
Just a quick rebuttal.
No, please. We are going to, Maitree, I'm going to come to you now. I think we've had enough of the politicians speaking. Maitree, let's okay, so there is an intent there, but I want to just, direct everyone's attention to what the former finance minister, Mr. P. Chidambaram, said. He raised a very crucial question. He says that 8 months revenue collection is less than 50% of target and fiscal deficit at 115% of estimate. Where is the money going to come from? And Maitree, that's the question to ask. It seems like the government is caught between the devil and the deep sea. I'm saying that because on one hand, there's the fiscal deficit target of 3.3%, which of course the government is hell-bent on, hoping to be able to maintain. On the other hand, there's the need of the hour to sort of spend ambitiously for a farm relief plan. Where's the money going to come from? Maitree.
Well, yeah, well, money is always a question mark, Tanya, but in 2008, when the UPA government did give that farm waiver, the fiscal deficit went up from the budgeted 2.5% to 6%. And subsequently, analysis showed that the Congress won the maximum number of seats in those states where the farm loan waiver had reached the maximum number of farmers. So, there's always this tendency for short-term populism, regardless of the long-term costs. Yes, in macroeconomics, things are never very clear and it's not a one-to-one relationship, but short-term populism can cost the country very dear. And in any case, farm loan waivers are not the answer. Money can be found if you cut back on more essential expenditure. So, the question is not whether is there money or is there not, because yes, it is true that today the fiscal deficit target does seem as if it's extended beyond the budget estimate, but remember, we still have another 3 months to go, and these are numbers in the interim period. This government has been fiscally far more prudent, rightly or wrongly, and I am not a great adherent of sticking to that strict 3.3%, provided the money is wisely spent and provided the fiscal deficit does not balloon beyond say about 3.5%, 3.6%, I don't see any great harm. But along with the waiver, even if you do think of it, a waiver is necessary, in fact, far better than a waiver is income support, but a targeted income support, not the kind of waiver that you give to each and every farmer regardless of whether they are genuinely deserving or not. So, what you perhaps need to do is in the short term, do something like an income support, but a very targeted income support only to small and marginal farmers, and along with that continue with the long term, medium and long term structural reforms that are very necessary. Reform your marketing procedures in agriculture, improve infrastructure, that is in terms of ensuring that you have better roads, better mandis, you have better technology. These are the kind of things that you need to do. So, you need both immediate some kind of immediate support to farmers, but not by way of waivers which are very bad, do enormous damage to credit culture, to the banking system, to the fiscal deficit. Some kind of income support targeted, and along with that do all the medium and long term structural reforms that are necessary in agriculture and successive governments have shied away from.
Okay, Siraj Hussain, let me ask you, since Maitree talked about targeted income support, you know, there is talk, I mean, this is of course source based information, about how the government is also mulling a direct investment support plan, just like the one that Telangana seems to be running fairly successfully. Now, you know, according to your calculations, and you know, I'm referring to a piece that I've read authored by you, you said the support of something like 2,000 rupees per acre will cost India around 2.8 lakh crore. Is direct support income a foolproof solution, and can it really help offset, you know, any price crash for, you know, of farmers not getting the return that they deserve for their produce?
See, I wrote an article in the Wire yesterday in which I discussed the Telangana experiment of direct investment support, which was coupled with the waiver of farm loans. Actually, in 2014, when the TRS government was formed in Telangana, the government announced that loans of farmers will be waived, and accordingly some 16,000 crores was spent over 4 years' time. And again in this year's assembly election, TRS has again promised to waive another 24,000 crores of loans. So, which means that loan waivers as a policy, as a consistent policy, have not really delivered what they were expected to do, that is to make farmers free of debt. Similarly, even in case of direct investment support, I would imagine that the requirement of a Punjab farmer is different from the requirement of a farmer, very small farmer in Bihar or in Telangana or in a rain deficit area. Now, in Punjab, even if you were to give some amount, 4,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees per acre, which is, you know, being discussed, it is not really going to address, because there the farmers face the problem of deteriorating level of water year after year. Now, in Punjab, what we need is not really this, but procurement of their alternative crops, and the government of India and the state government have been very reluctant to expand the scope of procurement from wheat and paddy to cover maize and other things. So, the solution for each state has to be different. This uniform level of direct investment support of 4,000 rupees per acre or 5,000 rupees per acre will not take us anywhere, and in fact it will be discriminatory to the really poor farmers in rain-fed areas whose crops are not procured, who do not have access to technology and who are in really bad shape. Even if you were to see the recent report of NABARD, which is called Nafis, about income of farmers, there is so much of variation across the states. And in UP, for example, the farmers are earning just 6,600 rupees per month. So, I mean, there is no comparison. Those farmers need a much higher level of support than the farmers of sugarcane, who get state advised price much higher than the FRP, whose crop is bought year after year by the sugar mills and so on. So, the solutions have to be different, keeping in mind the circumstances of each group of farmers.
Devinder Sharma, let me ask you, the government has increased the MSP from time to time, yet after each harvest season, as you alluded to in your last answer, we've seen the same scenes, farmers dumping their produce along national highways to basically register their protest up in arms. Why is it that despite increasing MSP incrementally now for a host of crops during both the Kharif and the Rabi season, farmers are not reaping the benefit? Is increasing the MSP just not the way out?
Well, before I talk about MSP, if you allow me, I'd like to talk about the fiscal, where will the money come from?
Yeah.
Every time we have to give money to agriculture, the question crops up, where will the money come from? In 2008, 2009, the industry was paid a stimulus package of 1.86 lakh crore. And that was a time when the global meltdown happened. Indian Express report tells us that for the tap has been running for the last 10 years. We have already paid industry a stimulus of 18.6 lakh crore in the last 10 years. Nobody have asked the question, where will the money come from? Look at the 7th Pay Commission. According to Credit Suisse Bank, it is, when implemented all across the country, it will entail an expenditure of 4.7 to 4.8 lakh crore every year. Nobody asked where will the money come from. But the moment you want to spend on agriculture, everyone is up in arms and saying, where will the money come from? I find it very amusing. Money will come from the same kitty from where the money has come for the economic stimulus or for the 7th Pay Commission and so on and so forth. Now, why we have this kind of a discrimination against agriculture is something which I don't understand. Now, your question specifically as to MSP, it is interesting. We need to understand MSP only benefits 6% farmers. 94% farmers are dependent on free markets. And if markets were so efficient, I see no reason why agriculture should have been in crisis. Now, if you look at Bihar, Bihar had actually done away with its APMC, which brings about MSP in 2006. And today what we find is, instead of investment going into Bihar for the mandi culture to develop and so on, the free markets to develop, Bihar is sending truckloads illegally into Punjab to sell their paddy and wheat in Punjab, because where they get assured income. So I think we knew it all these years, but somehow the focus was not on addressing these issues. Agriculture was a low priority area. It's a down market subject. Nobody wants to invest in agriculture. That's very unfortunate. Now, if only the governments had done it over the last few years, focus of few years means even decades, or successive governments had done it, I'm sure agriculture would have been in good shape. So all I'm saying is, why can't we start now, even if it's never too late? So we should know what to do. Now, we have only 7,600 APMC markets in this country. The entire focus is to dismantle them. Nobody wants to really strengthen the network. We need 42,000 markets, APMC markets in 5 kilometer radius in the country. If we have to see that all crops are to be taken care of with assured income by way of MSP, we need more mandis. But the system is actually asking for us to withdraw from the mandi culture or the APMC Act that we talk about. So there is a big conflict that we see basically as far as agriculture is concerned. And I think we need a kind of a timeline approach where we see what exactly needs to be done. The government comes out with 6,92,000 crores as a stimulus package for building roads. I am not opposed to building roads, but why can't mandis be built also in addition to the roads that we talk about? Why there is no budget for mandis? There is budget for roads only. So the point is, it's a question of priorities.
Right. Okay. I think with that, we're going to head into a quick commercial break and come right back. To stay with us. Back back on the India development debate. We're of course putting the spotlight on the farm stress that exists in the economy and sustainable solutions that we can look at beyond, of course, political rhetoric. Let me take it across then to Vaibhav Agarwal, who's here with us as the rest of our panel. And Vaibhav, you know, the Prime Minister received an extraordinary mandate in 2014 to change India. He promised to do so, and I remember in his Mann Ki Baat, he spoke about doubling farm income. Now, according to the Niti Aayog report that was just put out, I think about 2 weeks ago, it said that doubling farmers' income between FY16 and FY23 will basically require an annual growth rate of 10.4% in farmers' real income. You know, the fact is that we're sort of nowhere close to it. Is doubling farm income by FY23 looking more and more impossible?
Okay, so excellent question. You know, that's why ET Now's I'm a little conscious whenever I come to an ET Now debate, because not just the panel is expected to be there, but is expected to be informed, but I'm expected to deliver some non-political and sensible points as a politician, which is a rarity. So I will try my best. I can't promise, because there is politics and everything. But as I said, that when we took a mandate, extraordinary mandate in 2014, we had a vision document from a midterm to long-term solution perspective. We never said that we want to do something in our 5 years. We always knew what we had done our studies, we had done our groundworks. Of course, there was a margin for error. And so we are seeing a lot of changes in the policy perspective. But our vision document always spoke of most of the schemes from a year FY 2022 or FY 2024 perspective. So you see, and this is 23 perspective, one thing. So just to bring a holistic solution-based approach to the entire farm community and the entire farm sector, let's look at it. We have in 2017-18, the budget is already planned in accordance to that. So we've identified in past 4 years what are our shortfalls. So as Devendraji pointed out, there are credit issues that we've taken care of. So in 2016, he's not aware of it, looks like. We had already waived credit interest on credit, which a policy which came into effect in 2017, that has started to shown its effect. Now there is a lot of farm credit problem when it actually capitalizes interest on interest. And that's one thing that we are trying to deal with. Now, I'll just read out a couple of points that I have in my hand. I'm sorry, but I can't remember all of them. I have a small RAM in the mind. So let's look at it. Fine points are: target for agriculture credit in 2017-18 has been fixed at a record level of 10 lakh crores. This is a figure that we've already achieved to about 2 lakh crores FII by the end of FII 17-18. I don't know how shortfall will we have. The complete numbers are still to come. Farmers will also benefit from a 60-day interest waiver announced on 31 December 2016. That's an ongoing process. Since 31st December 2016, a policy which was made to come into immediate effect. To ensure flow of credit to small farmers, government and support NABARD for computerization and integration of 63,000 functional primary agriculture credit societies. Now you understand the importance of ENAM, eliminating the middleman. As Jaitley pointed out correctly, they need access to markets. They need access to new tech. So we went ahead and spoke to Israel to give us some new tech in farming. Also from farming produce protection perspective. We also went to other countries and partnered up with getting new equipments for farming sector and also simultaneously include finance schemes for those equipments so that the farmers and the smaller farmers can purchase them. So you see, there is a solution-oriented approach. Initially, Gaurav Bhai did quote me that we are not interested in doing farm loan waivers, but we are definitely interested in doing any waiver or bringing anything as a package, but not like Congress, not in an isolation of each other. We want to make a policy framework, bring in a solution perspective to the entire waiver. So if we go ahead and do a waiver, we will bring in a solution with it to back the entire waiver. We will not just do, okay, you've made a loss, I'll waive it to you, please vote for me. We don't care about the vote bank politics. We care about the growth of the country. And that's exactly what we sing when we say that we need to understand it is the development perspective that we want to bring in. We don't want to bring in the political perspective.
All right. Okay. Vaibhav, thanks for that. Gaurav, let me ask you, the best phase of agriculture growth coincided with the 2 tenures of, the UPA. led of course by the Congress. This was driven by a hike given in MSP, increase in food grain procurement, global agriculture practices, and of course strong domestic demand for food. But ironically, that also resulted in inflation, and at that time it was at double digit. If you were to be voted back to power in 2019, how are you going to sort of balance this issue of ensuring high prices for farmers at the same time, keeping a lid on inflation?
Tanya, major reason of inflation during those 10 years is the global crude prices. And during those 10 years, the prices had touched $140 a barrel, which was right now $40, $45 a barrel. So that was the major reason. Major reason was not the growth in MSP, which we provided, or the farm loan waiver, which we had done and which we are proud of. Second thing, I slightly disagree with an economist on the panel. When they are saying that we want to provide income support, our party is not against providing income support or generating a growth in the income. But I am saying that till the time they are in a vicious circle of debt and interest, that whatever income support you will provide, it will go in the repayment of the interest and the principal amount of debt. So that's what we believe, and that's what we are saying again and again, that agriculture loan waiver is necessary condition to get the farmers out of the distress, but not sufficient. For sufficient condition, we have to provide MSP, we have to provide proximity to the mandi, not the solutions borrowed from Israel or any other country. Indian agriculture had its own problems, and we have to decide on our own solutions, not the solutions imported from other countries. Third point, I agree with Mr. Sharma when he says, and I as an economist also feels like that economists across the world talks about credit discipline, credit culture. Niti Aayog talks about credit discipline, credit culture. But what happened to them when 3.27 lakh crore rupees of loan waiver of 15 friends had been done by Modi government? Where was the Niti Aayog at that moment of time? Why they had not shown the red signal at that moment of time? Thus, state resources, there is a primary premise of democracy that state resource belongs to each one of us, including you, me, and a farmer. So if there are 60 crore farmers, if you can provide a debt waiver of 3.27 lakh crore to 15 people, why can't you do the same at least to 62 crore farmers? That is as simple as this. Then economists are having a tendency that when it goes to industries, because I myself is economist, that when it goes to industry, they will say, okay, that is required because industry is in a bad shape, they are not doing well. But when it goes to agriculture, then all questions, all theories, all books. I think as an economist, we were not trained, we were not taught that agriculture is also an important activity of economy. And a country like India, agriculture should be one of the most primary activity, because our 62% of population is directly or indirectly dependent on this particular sector. So till the time this sector is not going to develop, whatever GDP growth we will have, that will not reach to the bottom of the pyramid. So myself and my party, we believe that we are going to do a big agricultural loan waiver, complemented with income support, complemented with MSP, complemented with the number of crops which were under the MSP, complemented with increase in the number of mandis, not doing a superficial type of solution or a something like a facial type of solution. We are going to kill the root cause because of which agriculturists and farmers are in distress.
Jaitley, let me ask you, where do you think the Modi government has erred in its agriculture policy? Is it a case of being unable to grasp the problem, or is it a case of being able to offer the right solution?
Well, the problem, Tanya, frankly, is very complex. I doubt if any government could really have solved the problem completely in 5 years, because remember, part of the problem is also that we have too many people dependent on the farm sector as compared to the proportion that you have in terms of contribution to GDP. So part of the solution really also lies in removing people away from their farms and putting them in jobs in other sectors, essentially manufacturing. Unfortunately, we have not been able to create the jobs in manufacturing to take these people out of farming, as a result of which farm size have consecutively contracted. The farm size, as Mr. Suraj Hussain mentioned, in parts of Bihar and UP is less than 0.5 hectares. Now, that's just not sustainable for a farmer to get any decent kind of livelihood. So, the problem is very complex. It needs a number of longer term reforms. Your trade policies, the moment you're always weighing between the farmer and the consumer. So, if prices rise and the consumers are getting hurt, you immediately allow import of food grains to come in and the farm prices get depressed. So, you need to have a multi-pronged attack, and all the problems that Mr. Gaurav mentioned in terms of MSP, in terms of farm loan waiver, income support, all these are temporary salves. What you need to have is a permanent solution, structural reform in agriculture, making farming a viable proposition, and that can happen only if you have a solution which attacks all the issues, linking it with your trade policy, linking it with your farm policy, technology policy, and somebody talked about roads. I think Devinder talked about roads and saying, how does roads help? Roads in fact are the biggest enabler to farmers, to enable them to take their product from the farm gate to the mandi. And ENAM, the mandis are notorious for the kind of mandi taxes that are charged. You need basically warehousing facility. So, a whole lot of investment in infrastructure, improving irrigation. So, the problem is not simple. I don't think any government can solve in five years, but temporary solutions are far worse. The remedy is worse than the disease. That really is my rather long answer to your very short question, Taneia.
Suraj Hussain, let me ask you, there are reports of, how the government is looking at direct income support, crop insurance schemes at a flat rate also being discussed. You could say from a political standpoint that the clock is ticking. What's the best solution, or a host of solutions that not just the Modi government, but the government, whichever one it is next year, needs to address to really stem this agri distress?
See, in the present government also, a number of reports have been written by experts making a number of suggestions for alleviating the distress in agriculture. Dr. Panagraiya headed the task force in Niti Aayog, which submitted its report about 3 years back. Unfortunately, the report was not even published by the government, and later on it was just published in the form of a paper in EPW. After that, Dalwai committee has written thousands of pages analyzing various sectors of agriculture and making a lot of good suggestions. And recently, India at 75, has again come up with a number of good ideas. Now, just to go back a little, you asked a question, what did the government do wrong? There are two things which happened. One is that the global downturn in prices hit our agriculture very hard, but it was not in our hands. And secondly, there was something which we did ourselves, and that was demonetization, which has hit agriculture and the entire unorganized sector very hard. I think I should be writing an article about it, and Professor Maithili should also consider writing about it. Agriculture gets talked about a lot in the media, but there is also an entire unorganized sector in urban areas. No one talks about them. They have also been hit very hard after demonetization and the destruction of cash economy, and there is no talk of supporting them. So, as Professor Maithili has pointed out, the solution, long-term solution to agriculture, in fact, lies outside the agriculture. The growth in economy outside the agriculture will absorb surplus labor from agriculture. We have seen in Bangladesh, where the textile sector has been doing very well. They have already gone ahead of India. So, a lot of things are required to be done in the economy as a whole, which will take people out from agriculture, and in addition to that, we have to proceed sector by sector, state by state, and see. The government made a very good beginning by identifying 99 irrigation projects, for example, which were supposed to be completed by 2021.
Sure.
Now, we have not really made much progress there. So, there are a lot of things, even ENAM, it is being talked about a lot, but I would say that the states did not really implement it in the right earnest. So I hope that the next government, whoever forms the next government, will take a long-term view and really try to do something long-term for agriculture.
Okay. Mr. Sharma, I have time for one last question. I'll let you have the last word. You know, there was a very disturbing CSDS study that was put out in March this year, which said that almost 76% farmers want to give up farming. That's deeply disturbing. You know, Maiti talked about how we need to look at maybe creating other jobs. Is that really the solution? Are we running the risk of, you know, generations sort of giving up on wanting to be on the farmland at all?
That comes out from CSDS report is that how the systematically agriculture has been killed in this country, and that's because the economic reforms we have actually thrive on actually decimating agriculture. Now that's the kind of model that we have built all these years. So I'm not surprised if, as I said earlier, if the income of average income of a farming family is 20,000 rupees a year, what do you expect the people to do? They definitely want to quit agriculture and move out. This is because they were deprived of their rightful income all these years. When you deprive a generation or a society of a rightful income, this is what will naturally happen. So this is what has actually gone on, and the kind of prescription we are giving actually is more of the same. You know, it doesn't really address the fundamental issues. We always say, you know, agriculture is a very complex issue. It will take us a whole lot of reforms. But look at it. You know, Nirmala Sitharaman, when she was the commerce minister, I remember she said 7,000 steps have been taken for ease of doing business. Look at everyone has got together to provide or make it easy for doing business. 7,000 steps, and yet the industry is in crisis. We all know that. Look at the NPS rising and so on and so forth. But when did you hear of ease of doing agriculture in this country? When did we take steps for ease of doing agriculture? This is because our mentality. We think agriculture has to be dependent. It is something which is a burden on the country. So we must move people out of agriculture, because this is prescribed in our textbooks. This is prescribed in a textbook.
I should be able to. I should be.
Very.
I think Devendraji has no information. Devendraji is absolutely uneducated about the steps that the government is taking, and Devendraji is absolutely political in his approach. You know, okay, let me, you know, pick up something, and I will not get into.
Waiver, that's not fair, because Mr. Devendra Sharma did start by saying that he was sort of.
I don't want to discredit you on a
national
Pakistan
TV, now.
But what you're talking about is absolutely skewed in one direction without any basis of facts, and you don't have complete information. But Tanya, on your debate, just on a lighter note, picking up from where Maitli
if anybody says anything above, he doesn't know. Only BJP website is full of information.
Agri reforms, fiscal reforms, judicial reforms, that reforms, these reforms. Then, you know,
from which website you are reading the data?
Okay. You know what? We're just gonna. I'm sorry, but we're just, you know, we don't want to end things on this note. So I'm just going to thank each one of you, Vaibhav, Gaurav, Maitli, Siraj Hussain, as well as Devendra Sharma, for really taking the time out for what we hope for our viewers was a fruitful discussion. The idea really was to, you know, put the spotlight on what it is that's ailing farmers in our country today. Remember, we sitting in our cities perhaps feel a bit far and removed, but this is as much as your problem as it is ours. And we do hope that in the last 1 hour, we could maybe, you know, give some possible structural solutions to a crisis that is ailing the country. But with that completely timed out in this edition of the India Development Debate, thank you so much for watching. Up ahead is Top 10 at 10.